Black Estate, Our Interest, Our Voice podcast, where you can hear real conversations on real topics about real issues affecting our community, get real views and real advice from real professionals about real estate and business. Good afternoon, everyone. Tanisha Williams back with the Black Estate, Our Interest, Our Voice podcast, and this is our 6th episode. I know we've been gone for a while, you guys. I've did some traveling. I was out doing some scouting. We are trying to build this thing with the Black Estate. So I was in Las Vegas as well as LA scouting other realtors and businesses to present to you guys in this magazine. Today we are here though with Terrell Jpk. He is an author, he is a poet as well as a writer, and he's one of the journalists for the Black Estate magazine. I'm excited to be here with him. He's just returned from his travels. He had a great trip that he just got back from, so I'll let him tell you guys a little bit about that. But this is Terrell Jpk. Kent?
Good morning, good evening, good night, everyone.
Yes. So Terrell, as I said before, he is one of our writers with the Black Estate. So he's also a journalist. We got some investigative work that he is going to start doing for the Black Estate as well. Terrell, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just a little bit of an intro. Where are you from? What high school you went to? We'll start there.
I am born and raised here in Portland, Oregon, Northeast Portland.
NEP?
Went to the University of Oregon, and after that I pretty much started to work the corporate America job, and after a while I kind of saw myself doing a little bit more creative ventures in terms of, as she just introduced, writing and traveling and basically creative living. And growing up in Portland, that was always something I wanted to do, kind of expound around being a creative individual, and that's just who I am, and that's why I'm here.
Nice. Yeah. So what got you into writing? Is that something that's always been in you, or was it from school that you got the motivation to start writing? Any journalist classes or anything you were doing?
Interestingly enough, no. That's one of the harder questions that I have to answer when people ask me what inspired me to write, what got me into it. One of the first things that comes to mind is when I was a kid, as I just mentioned, I was very adventurous. I used to ride my bike to the airport and literally sit on 82nd Avenue right by runway 28L at PDX and just look at airplanes. And I would go home and pretty much play as if the airplanes were landing in the kitchen during the summertime mostly. So fast forward, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a firefighter, a lawyer. All of that. And I never knew what I could be, specifically, but if there's one thing I could kind of put all that in, it was a writer. Right. Another thing that really inspired me to write, this sounds kind of off the wall, but I used to watch this cartoon named Doug Funny, or it was Doug on Nickelodeon. And Doug used to
do the little black cartoon, Doug?
No, this was
okay. You know which one I'm talking about, though.
Yeah,
I think there was a cartoon back in the day with a little black kid called Doug, and he had on glasses. Doug or Dougie, maybe I could be totally.
This is a little white boy, by the way.
Oh, okay, so then.
Yeah, this is on Nickelodeon. So Doug was a fictional character on Nickelodeon. He used to do Dear Journal every night and write about the hells of his day. I guess he was in elementary school or something. And then I did the same thing. My mom would tell you about the story where I used to fix my room to look exactly like Doug's room and then write in my journal. So I grew up writing in my journal. And then as I got older, kind of confused on, do I want to be a lawyer, pilot, whatever, I can just write about this stuff. I can write about coming to be the creative individual I am. So to answer your question, I guess Doug was an inspiration. So much more. I'm leaving out a lot, but I mean, in terms of me as a creative individual, that's one of the initial things that really sat me down to write.
Nice. Well, I find it interesting how that really falls in line even with what you're doing now outside of the Black Estate magazine, because you're also a writer for an aviation magazine. Is that correct?
Research.
Research.
Yeah,
okay.
Research writing. Yeah. So I'm not on the front line with them, but it's more so in the background of research and whatnot. So.
Okay. So what's research writing when it comes to the aviation? What are you?
So every industry has beat writers. they have sectors of, different marketing, whether it's aerospace or business travel, commercial travel, even military. So basically, they have researchers who are on the back end of collecting information for the beat writers. Okay. And they basically put that information out to different publications. That company specifically has a publication that's digital and it's print. Okay. They go back to like the early 1900s. So,
wow. Yeah. Wow, nice. So when we talk about writing, and you still said that Doug kind of inspired you with him writing in his journal, what's your favorite genre? Were you also an avid reader? Did you read a lot?
I did and did not. As a kid, I usually read comic books. I was more so into like easy reads. Okay. The part of the longest book I read was probably one of those Goosebumps. What was it? Goosebumps. Yeah. Or the Magic School Bus. I used to read the Magic School Bus.
Okay.
There was this other book called Little Bill. Wasn't there?
Well, what about when you got into high school? Did you have any favorite books that you read? Or?
I hated reading them.
So you was.
Yeah, because reading was homework. Then.
Right.
So
right.
There was this one book I read, and I think it was a freshman. And you know what? Forgive me, I forgot the author's name. It was a Black author, and it was like way above it was like
way about your reading level.
Yeah. It was I should have got his name before I got here, but basically it was about older Black men and relationships, and there was like all these sex scenes.
Oh wow!
And like I was reading I read.
So he was reading some risque stuff in the sixth grade.
And I actually gave it to my cousin Sade, who was on this podcast. I gave it to her. She read it, and gosh, I wish I knew the book, because it was like the first book I actually read that was like it hooked me.
Oh wow!
And like this was like a drama series.
Yeah, the adolescent reading about sex.
Yeah. And it was like he was writing about these, like it was. Part of it was erotic. I think it was more so drama. It was drama fiction, but there was a lot of erotic in there.
Right. So that's it.
But it was interesting, and I still look back at the book, and I'm like, I actually was interested in that. Like,
right. That's what I've always been a big reader. I've read books from science fiction books to. Some fantasy, to autobiographies, depending on what they're talking about. Yeah. And in the last, I'd say, 20 years, maybe 25 years, 20 years. I ain't gonna date myself like that, but I've read a lot of self-help books, a lot of spiritual books to really get to really expand my own knowledge of self. And to just really kind of work those mind muscles. I like to learn. Yeah. So even if I'm not having to learn, I like to constantly be learning something.
Yeah, that's actually been one of my recent favorites, is self-help and more like creative, aspiring books such as that. So
yeah, definitely. Now, what's your favorite genre, and like what do you like to write about with and where do you get your inspiration from? So I guess I'll ask you one at a time. Okay. What's your favorite genre? Let's start there.
My favorite genre, so there's two parts to that answer. Favorite genre to read. I love to write sci-fi drama. And people are like, well, what is that?
Sci-fi drama.
So it's more so futuristic drama in terms of how drama evolves with the humans, with technology. There's, actually we can talk about this later, but there's another story I'm writing now that relates to it. But I like to write that because it's kind of, you can be open with futuristic ideas. They're fictional, obviously, and kind of tie it back to what's going on today and connect the dots. That's kind of like how I like to come to conclusions with storytelling. Right. As far as reading, self-help, more so journeys with autobiographies and understanding people's, come to Jesus moments, and how they found themselves, how they found their creative bones, whether it's becoming a passionate artist, entrepreneur, business owner, or whatnot, or because the narrative thing for me is, as a writer, I try to stay distance myself from reading narratives, because as a writer, I find myself almost, I wouldn't say copycat, but my mind is like a sponge.
Right.
So I start
right.
picking up little things that writers do in stories, and I really want to be original about
And
it.
have your own voice.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And I've read books and then wrote right after that. It was like, wait a minute.
Right. Like
I
that
can't
doesn't
do
sound like me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it kind of touches, I would say hinders my originality. That's what gives me ideas, but I try to be a little bit more and that's where the creative storytelling comes from, or the poetry.
You know, and a lot of artists, I think, kind of operate like that, especially music artists.
Yeah,
When I did music, I didn't used to listen to a lot of other people's music because you want to stay sounding like you and have your own originality. So, yeah, I definitely get that. Where do you draw your inspiration from when you're writing about these different things? And tell me about maybe your latest book that you're writing now with the sci-fi drama. What is that about?
So the sci-fi drama, well, first the inspiration comes from, as I was mentioning earlier, about growing up being a adventurous minded little black boy, and whatever that means, it's basically, so let me kind of tell the story in a way that will kind of benefit listeners, because I grew up in Northeast Portland with a lot of aspirations of being something more than I could ever imagine. And that definition is very wide. Right. But what it came down to was when I got to college, I didn't want to just be someone who's just getting an education and then get a job and then that's it. It seemed very boring to me. So I guess during the days of, experiencing anxiety, depression, and I got to be this or else I'm going to be that, because it's like, I don't know how to explain that.
Well,
better,
try to know, because you're actually tapping into something here.
Yeah.
That feeling of like, if I don't make it in this field, then this is what I could become. And talk about what was going on in Northeast back then.
So,
and how old are you?
36.
36.
I almost forgot.
Yeah, so talk about what was going on in the time that you were in middle school and in high school, and what was it that you were trying to avoid becoming?
I was trying to avoid being a lame NIGGA.
Okay.
In our community of, so my role models were in church, and I grew up Christian. A lot of my role models were, men that were in the church who weren't really, I guess, leading roles, so aspiring as like an athlete. So, when you see their downfalls in front of people, like the congregation, when you see that, it's like, well, am I going to become that? And for me personally, like, for example, my father, he was one of the preachers. He started to get sick as I got older, and I started to kind of identify myself as, I'm going to be,
next in line.
Exactly. I'm going to be this hardworking black man, and then eventually anxiety, stress is going to catch up with me in my 50s and 60s or whatnot, and then I'm gone, and have nothing to show for it besides maybe kids, and nothing's wrong with that. But I guess in that time, there wasn't too much of inspirational role models in the community for me personally, outside of who athletes were. I'm not even gonna name like trailblazer basketball players, but some of them were inspiring to me because they were looked at, they were idolized.
Right.
Not that they are today, but I kind of think back now, it's like, is that all I had?
Right. As
it's
far
like,
as
it's like that's all I got.
As far as role models,
it's like NBA players or actors, or even rappers. And I kind of think back and it's like, and as I got older, I guess in my 20s, I started to kind of feel not pathetic.
Wanted to kind of break that mold, like that's what you're saying. Like you didn't want to fall into that. These are my only options.
Right. So I guess my inspiration came from who can I be out of my confusion, out of my depression, out of my silent battles of all that. Who could I kind of break into that's original? Obviously, I don't make. I'm not an athlete, so I can't become a role model through that avenue. So I kind of had to pave my own way with writing. And
did writing kind of help you through your depression? There's a lot of men. I love how you are open open enough to talk about you having that depression. So a lot of men don't talk about it, and it really eats them up, and they don't really have an outlet for it as well, you know. So having figured that out at an early age, knowing that writing was something that helped your depression, getting your feelings out on paper, that's big.
Yeah, so to kind of touch on that more, and to kind of shed a little bit more light on that, you know, I call it a silent battle through depression, but really what it was emotional suicide. You know, I would wake up, and this was during my time in college, so maybe between the ages of maybe 19 and 23-ish. You know, I would literally write letters. I call them love letters, but they're really like I'd hate life letters. Like,
So they weren't love letters.
Yeah, they weren't love letters. But like when I tell people about it now, it's like, I mean, I don't tell everybody about this, but I've even written about this. You know, I've letters to myself saying, you know, I don't like life. Like, you know, I'm not becoming who I thought I was going to become when I was 14. I'm not becoming my idol, who was so-and-so person who's ain't shit now. But it's like,
people don't realize how that, what young boys are going through when they look at these idols, as you say, these rappers, these basketball players, these men that are on TV, and how hard of a goal that is to reach, and to start feeling like, oh, I'm never going to become that. And now what do I do?
Right.
You know, so was that where you were kind of
exactly. So when I
like
realized
you had this goal that was unreachable.
Yeah, I was like, now that I'm not going to the NBA, it's like, who am I now? And I think it's more, I guess my reflection of that was more of what I was seeing on the news. Social media wasn't big back then. So obviously we see what the best CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, what are they showing us?
Especially at that time.
At that time, exactly. You know, we don't have TikTok. We did not have TikTok, Instagram, or anything like that back then. So what we saw was what the mass media was putting out there.
Black men getting arrested.
Exactly.
Lined up on the side of the curb.
And, you know, we see this today. And I hate to say this, but it's nothing new for somebody like me.
Right.
Like it's kind of, it's depressing to look at that stuff, but it's also like, you know, we've been seeing this for the past,
as long as we can remember.
I'm going to name I'm not going to name anybody in Portland specifically, but I remember certain people getting killed by cops when I was in elementary school. I remember their names 30 years later. And like,
say their names. We're going to say their names.
Kendra James, for example. There's another individual who, actually just talking to the guy about his dad. But basically, you know, that's not new to me. So when I see like Black Lives Matter 30 years later, and then people protesting during COVID,
it's like we're still here.
We're still here. And like, are you only protesting because you're stuck in the house and this is the only reason why you can get outside is because of, you know, quarantine? You know, we're in Portland. We're on a very small scale compared to what may have been happening somewhere in the East Coast or LA or whatnot. So that's what
we made a lot of noise though in Portland, right?
Yeah, they think we trash now because of that. But it's like, I mean, this is what we've been experiencing and seeing. And as a Black kid, you know, it's
starts to wear on your emotions and your psyche.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't want to be on the other end of that as the victim.
Right.
So you kind of fear that if I'm not somebody to somebody, then I'll be nobody to a lot of people. So
that's deep.
Yeah.
That's really deep and sad. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So from coming from that thinking, and how did you get yourself out of that? Like, did you ever get counseling, or was it all really through your writing? I know a lot of people will do self-healing, and it is through, you know, everybody says if you're going through something, write it out, journal, because it really helps. So you naturally started journaling, and did it give you different perspective, kind of, you know, looking back at what you were writing versus where you're at in life? And did you start seeing other channels, or like, wow, I could actually turn this into something and be great at this versus me being a NBA player or, you know?
Yeah. So interesting question, because to answer it, yes. Actually, no, I did not do counseling. I'd seen counselors through college, maybe two, and none of them, we just didn't click. It's like some people you click with and some people you don't. And I kind of looked at them as like, if I'm going to tell you all my problems that I'm not used to expressing myself, then why would I express them to you so you can kind of put it on paper and, I don't know, what do they do? Come to their own conclusion based on past research.
Right.
I'm nothing special, but I did kind of overcome it through writing. I would read those love letters I was talking about like once a year, like every 6 months to a year, and like kind of see how far I am from that feeling. And so as I was writing through the years, I mean, I wasn't writing every day like I do now, but throughout my mid 20s and I guess late 20s and up until now, it's I don't read them anymore, by the way, but
Well, that's a wow.
it was more so just self overcoming, and like I said earlier, it was a silent battle. Like no one really knew when I came out about that, probably about 5 years ago. People were thinking it was yesterday. I was like, no, this was like 5. Because you remember on Facebook they had the 10-year challenge.
Right.
I did that, and I was like, hey, everybody, the reason why I write or have come out about writing is because it was re-sparked by days of depression, days of suicide, days of all this, and never sought counseling consistently. And I don't advocate for like you should write it out, but
well, I think
counseling is a good idea.
I think so too, and to know, I mean, like you are able to admit that it was a silent battle and that all these things that you were seeing on TV were really weighing on you and not just making you depressed, but making you feel suicidal.
Yeah.
Imagine, I could just imagine how many other men are going through that and they don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even know how to identify, like, I'm depressed. This is why I'm angry. This is why I'm walking around with a chip on my shoulder, because every time I go home after working a job I don't like, I go home and sit down and watch people that look like me being killed on TV.
And I didn't know I was going through that, by the way. Like I said, like throughout my 20s when I started writing, and life started getting a little bit easier as I kind of distanced myself from certain behaviors. I started to kind of see who I was, and it wasn't until I did this flotation tank. I'm not sure if you ever heard of a flotation tank.
I have. I'm actually wanting to try it. So tell me, what was
so
that like for you?
I did the flotation tank for the first time about 5 years ago. And at this point, I'd already come to realization that, I had a silent battle for about 5 years of depression and suicide. And I never really came forth about it with myself until I randomly, I don't even know how I even thought about flotation tank, but I was going to the spa, I was getting massages. I started running, and I was like, I had to take care of my body because I wasn't like, and another thing on top of that too, I used to get migraine headaches. So I would get these migraine headaches after crazy workouts when I started to like actually try to be more in tune with myself. And I think at the spa they had a flotation tank when I was getting massages, and then once I got in it, and basically what a flotation tank is, it's a tank of 800 pounds of Epsom salt and water. So basically you lie in it naked, or I don't know, you can have shorts, whatever, but you just by yourself in the dark, floating in water. It's actually quite comfortable.
Is there any sound in the room?
No
or
sound.
Is it just completely...
So no sight. It's all black. You don't hear anything. It's completely silent.
So it's like sensory deprivation?
I guess that's another name for it. It's sensory deprivation. So basically you're just alone with your thoughts. And it was 90 minutes.
I don't think I've ever been alone with my thoughts for.
It's a next level of meditation. So I meditate a lot too, by the way. But the sensory deprivation tank, flow tank.
Does somebody walk you through like what to do when you get in there, or you just go in there and you're just quiet and you just let the thoughts come to you? Is there any techniques to use while you're in there?
They have suggestions. I mean, you could take their suggestions. Mine was to basically go in there and just shut up. And then for me, my mind is very abstract, very visual. So of course I have visuals, I had voices. One of the things that came to me was really coming to, I guess, a realization that you've come so far, you've ran so hard, so far, for so long, out of days of despair and depression, that you really forgot why you're running. And I had to kind of think back and say, these emotions aren't too far from me in terms of like, it was just maybe at that point, it was probably like 5 years ago that I realized, life is getting a little bit better. I can actually smile and have a genuine smile towards people. So I kind of had to realize, this is a moment where there's nothing else distracting me from the realization that you're just as effed up as some people, or you were as effed up as people who are now, and they may not ever see the light. It really, I think there was somebody who actually,
because self-realization,
yeah,
is such a deep thing. When that light finally goes on for you, and you're like, wait a minute, I can actually do something about my circumstances.
Right.
I don't have to be a victim of my life and my circumstances. I can really start carving out my own path.
Yeah.
And
so there was actually one more thing I want to touch on that. And this is something I'd realized through this whole like process is, and maybe it's not so much true as it is just a level of awareness, but I saw that coming out as depressed was playing a victim. And I didn't really want to be a victim because it would bring a lot of attention on me in that moment. And maybe that's a pride thing. Maybe it's actually, let's just call it what it is. I think it's pride.
Right.
Like no one wants to be the weak black man.
Right.
No one wants to be like, there's a narrative that kind of goes
Nobody
along
wants
with,
to be the victim.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the victim. But then, I mean, I guess some people do want to play the victim, but when they don't understand like how your circumstances are wired, I mean, you're only going to be the victim to a certain amount of people.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah, kind of bring unwarranted attention to that
Right.
in that regard. But I remember that being one of the things that kind of feared me from like really coming out about it and just thinking it was normal to feel this way.
Right. So how long were you in that depression, and when did you finally start like seeing the light? And then we're going to fast forward to some of the awesome things that you've
because life is good, by the way. So.
I know life is good. You've been doing some amazing things.
So I think I first started to realize in terms of depression probably. So after high school, I went to UNLV. I attended UNLV for a year in Las Vegas, and when I got back, I was like, "What now?" So I went to University of Oregon. I actually went to Lane College and then U of O. After that, for the first year, it was typical partying, drinking, or whatnot, and I guess. It's like a raisin in the sun.
A raisin in the sun.
Yeah, because like in Eugene, Oregon, it's like in Eugene, Oregon, you have this assumed identity. Always got the question of, "Are you an athlete?" And I wasn't even that muscular back then. I was just, I don't know, tall, dark, and handsome, I guess. But I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? I mean, and I used to walk around with this sense of entitlement in terms of I am who I am. However, deep down, I ain't shit. And I think that really started to get to me at a certain point when I would see, the athletes being idolized and they would be looked up to. And
because your mind went back to that when you were younger.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
So when I would see this or feel this in on campus or wherever, or teachers would think I'm somebody, it was kind of went back to that. Oh, he's not that, Oh, who's that? Oh, he's not that, They would think I'm somebody, and I would tell them, oh, no, I'm just going to school. Like, oh.
You can like see all the oh, no, that sucks.
So that really, I don't think I've even looked at it that way, but that was one of the things.
And it plays on that. It kind of makes you feel a little inferior.
Exactly. Yeah. So kind of going through the years in Eugene, it's kind of like I had this cardiologist who was telling me, because I was talking about the migraines earlier that cause a lot of, I think the anxiety cause a lot of migraine
and stress.
That I could never see because I thought it was normal. But have you ever heard of the Chinese water drop mechanism or torture? There's a certain word.
Just drop that.
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit here, a little bit there, but over years you become crazy because of it. Because it's like that. It's actually more so called post-traumatic complex post-traumatic CPTSD. So it's more complex because it's more broken down over time. It's a buildup of stress. Right. So as that built up over, the years, it just got worse to the point where I was empty by the end of most days because I never was that individual who people thought I was. And
you felt like you're letting them down every time.
I'm this guy, I'm this tall, dark, and handsome guy who's just another student.
And that should have been enough, right?
Yeah, it should have been enough.
As a student,
exactly.
Right.
At least I'm not doing what you think I would be doing,
right?
Or what I don't know what social media, or not social media back then, more so, but
what
more
the stereotype is.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Should be, or yeah.
Yeah. So that was throughout my I would say between 19 and 23. As when I left Eugene, I started to realize, I've made it through the sort of rite of passage. Now I'm in the real world. Who am I going to be? Well, I can be this individual in corporate America, and that
doesn't sound exciting, right?
Yeah, it's good because you're making money.
Right.
It's like,
exactly.
okay, fine, I'm not broke anymore. I got a check coming every 2 weeks. I can pay rent and go out and finally go on vacations with friends and or whatnot. But at the same time,
life you dreamed about.
Yeah, you got to have an identity when it comes to corporate America too. And I'm not I'm all for it. Work a job, have a side passion or whatnot. But then I realized, what was it that really got me through the depressing days? And maybe it's not going to be the things that gets me out of corporate America, but it can be a foundation. So I started to journal again, or I started a blog site, which is vehicledigest.net. That's what I started my first or second year working at a company downtown. Actually, it was in tech, but that was kind of how I started to journal myself back into a little bit more sanity for the most part, and then realizing, okay, maybe I'm not as depressed as I used to be. But at that point, it was you
started seeing your worth a little bit more
because
you were creating.
Yeah, exactly. So that was probably this was probably about 2013, 14-ish. It's almost 10 years ago that, I started to create that separation between who I was between, 06 2011 or whatnot. So that was that was about a 5-7 year journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's fast forward because the time is that was I really appreciate you though, being vulnerable enough and open enough to share that with us. I hope that any men that are watching and we're able to, if you're going through depression and you're not really familiar with, you're not familiar with the signs of it, definitely reach out to somebody. You don't have to suffer in silence. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing that demasculates you. It's being human. And in order to be the strong and masculine man that you are, you have to deal with those feelings and you have to address them and you have to heal. And do something to start that healing process. And journaling is a great way to start that. Yeah. When I was doing music, I started from writing. I would write poems, and that was a way for me to let out all the things that I was going through. I would write raps, and that was like a huge healing process for me. Music was my healer, in so many ways. But to move on. Since you are doing wonderful now, you've made a whole name for yourself. You currently have, how many books have you written now, and how many books do you have out?
So technically 3 have been written from the very first one I did. They all haven't been published. The ones that are published are 3 poetry books and 1 novel or novella.
Can you tell us the name of those books?
So the very first one I did was a creative writing journal. It's called An Eye Between My Haiku. So again, that's an eye between my haiku. So a little bit of history behind that. So I grew up learning Japanese.
Nice, cool.
So it's not a second language, but
self-taught, or is that something that you actually?
We were my parents put me and my sister in an immersion program.
Nice.
So we learned it between kindergarten and 12th grade.
Awesome.
So I've kind of been around
parents.
I was around the, I guess, Japanese creative arts and whatnot growing up, and A little bit of backstory behind an I between my haiku. And the more I say it, I'm like, why did I title that? Because it's so like, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's easy.
Sounds cool though.
So the very first book I wrote was called Bourgeoisie, which I never published. It was about 40,000 words. And that was a sci-fi futuristic drama about a character who's basically telling a story about how he becomes a freelance architect and does amazing things in a futuristic city on the East Coast.
Oh, cool.
I botched that book. Basically, I wrote it and then like told everybody I was going to put it out. I still have it, by the way. I've never
Put it out.
I just never put it out, and it turns into something completely different, which I'll talk about here in a second. But people were excited about it. You know, I did a video with me unboxing the proof cover, and I was like, oh snap, this is it. You know, and so I wrote it and self-edited, self-published everything. Or I didn't self-publish it because I never put it out. But when I realized, you know, this book is not good enough, I said, you know what? I'm going to publish a book. So that's how I wrote An I Between My Haiku, which is haiku and just creative writing, raw. Like I just sat down and wrote for like 10 days and put it out. That was the very first one. And then the second one is called Rigel, which Rigel is the main character of Bourgeoisie. So a complete restructure of Bourgeoisie. And it's it's part of a series called A Recollection Through Him, where he basically talks about, it ends up him trying to find his father.
Okay.
Because he loses a lot in that book. So, yeah.
Okay. Sounds deep.
Yeah.
Sounds deep. But it's based in like a sci-fi setting?
Yeah, so it's based it's a futuristic sci-fi because a lot of the things I talk about takes place in the future. So when I say future, meaning like, let's say 50 years from now. But the thing about the time frame is that's kind of the essence of the book, is that you don't know what time frame it is.
Right.
It's just the future. Because it also takes place, his family is not necessarily from Africa, but part of it takes place in a futuristic, revitalized section of Nigeria. So I had to learn a lot about.
So kind of like some Wakanda.
Yeah, well, far from that. It's not that technical. Like,
Okay.
I can never compare it to Wakanda.
So they just got laptops and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's more so kind of an idea around how not much changes in the future. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. That's deep.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about some of your travel experiences and how you've drawn inspiration from that. So last year, you actually sold your home to travel the world for a year, right? Were you gone for a full year, or was
it was 8 months.
8 months. Yeah, it's almost a year. It's a long time to be gone. And so tell me about that. So you sold your home.
Yeah.
What made you decide, I'm going to sell my home? How long did you have your home? Because that's a huge accomplishment for one, for a Black man at your age to have been able to purchase his own house. So what was your family saying when you were like, I'm going to sell it and travel?
Well, they thought I was crazy. They thought I was still going through some shit. Yeah. But it was, so I had my house for about 4.5 years. I didn't have it that long. But it was like,
Enough
it's
to
crazy.
get some equity in it.
Yeah, it was crazy how much it grew in that time frame because nobody wanted that house. So I got it at a very low price. And I didn't really plan to stay there that long anyway. It was more of a starter homes, yeah. And, I had thought about renting it out, but there would have been too much work to put in it as, to make it rent ready, rent attractive or whatnot. So my idea was to just cash out on it. And what's the most I can do with this cash? And right when COVID started, I think it was, what was that, March-ish, 2020? I was kind of going back and forth about what I wanted to do in general, because that was when I was like writing every day. I was like full-time authoring during this time, putting together like, 3 or 4 books that will be out within the next couple months, and the next one will be, kind of over time as it gets edited or whatnot.
You got to keep us posted so we can support, and I can let everybody know so you guys can make sure you guys purchase it.
Yeah. So during that time, I was, aside from writing, I was kind of thinking about what's the next step after this, because I'll say this, like anybody who works on a big project for that long, especially as a creative, there's this kind of emptiness that happens when you're done. It's like, what's next?
Right.
Some authors I've read about who they get very depressed, and it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing on that. But so I'd wanted to travel the world because, you know, as a vision, I don't want to call myself a visionary, but I just had this idea that I would be in airports writing, I would be in hotels writing, and not have a home to come to. That sounds very weird, but now that I say it out loud, but that was my vision for some reason. like to be like a nomad, to be lost or something. And actually, I have a story about this airport trip, but the idea was to kind of like let everything go and
to fully submerge
myself in like this, like surrender to just the, I don't know, like, and I still kind of, as you can tell, I kind of get caught up in this because sometimes I ask myself, like, was it worth it? Well, yes, it was worth it. And it was something I really wanted to do, but I just feel like it's a part of who I am. Like I was saying earlier, I used to ride my bike to the airport as a kid from my grandma's house. And then I would like watch the airplanes land on runway 28L. Like a lot of people are like, what the hell is runway 28L? Well, that's the runway right off of 82nd. Right by the Embassy Suites. I would park my bike right there and just plane spot. And as a kid, I would say, you know, I'm going to be on these planes one day in and out of Portland.
So you're manifesting.
Yeah, I guess you call it manifesting. And I didn't know where I was going to go. I don't know why I was going to be going somewhere, but one of the things with, you know, using my property as a tool to manifest is to let it go and receive something else. And there I was, you know, going from country to country, plane to plane, different villages, I guess, meeting people, like being stared at, you know, people asking you, who are you? Can I get a selfie with you? Can I touch your hair?
Wow.
It's like.
So where was your first, so when you left Portland, your first destination was where?
Puerto Rico.
Okay, the first time you left?
Yeah, so Puerto Rico was January 2022, so last year. So Puerto Rico, I was there for 2 weeks and kind of fast forwarded through winter because literally it was like 80 degrees there. It was beautiful. But, you know, I try not to get like the tourist experience out of these places because you can go anywhere to get like a tropical tourist experience. You know, I really wanted to like submerge myself in like culture, to have something to talk about rather than like, oh yeah, our hotel was nice. You know,
right. You wanted to get out and like, where y'all live at? Where do y'all go
exactly?
Get at?
So we went to this place. One of the places we went to was called La Perla. Very dangerous place.
Oh, was it?
Like, yeah, the police will tell you don't go down there.
Like you might get kidnapped.
You
dangerous?
might get killed.
Oh wow. Okay.
Like, don't go down there because we don't go down there. Like,
oh wow.
It's like
we ain't coming to help you. Get lost.
Yeah. So I'm not. Yes.
So you were in the hood in Puerto Rico.
That was just one of the places we went like after hours, like because you know they.
You guys went there after hours.
Yeah, we like because the thing
so
is
you
like
guys risked it all and decided to go anyway.
I met some people from DC, from Detroit, and we all went down there together. Okay. Like I wasn't down there by myself. Like you don't go to
Detroit. They said we ain't scared. Come on. So
like you know, and you know they. I mean, they cool with tourists as long as you ain't being, you know, wild with it. But we seen some things that, and I'm gonna leave some stories out, but we seen some things that let us understand why police don't go down there.
Wow. Okay.
But that's Puerto Rico though. We kind of it's one of the experiences where firsthand, you know, we got the realization why police don't go down there and why tourists should not go down there.
Ever?
I won't say ever. Just be aware. Okay. But if you would take it from me, don't go down there.
Okay, you guys hear that?
Yeah.
La Perla.
But shout, like honestly, like we partied with them. Like it was welcoming for the most part. It's just one of those areas where literally there's signs that say no cameras, no photos, no videos.
Oh wow,
It's one of them
So it's
areas.
going down over there.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, but they party like it's just one of you got to know somebody or you got to be with a group of people that.
So out of all the, give us a list of all, because we are running out of time. I'm going to
Yeah.
try to keep it going a little bit longer because conversation's getting good. And now we're talking about your travels, and this is what I really wanted to touch base on. We may have to get you back in here to do
No
part
problem.
two.
I'll be back. I mean, the next place was Egypt, and that's kind of where I had this like crazy journey between. So this was during I don't say the end of COVID. I guess I don't know when the end of COVID technically was, but you read these fine print rules about vaccination requirements, COVID requirements, and so on. So when I left Puerto Rico, I laid over in JFK. Then I went to laid over in Heathrow, London. And as I'm getting on the plane for Cairo, Egypt Air, I pull out my vaccination card and I show the gate agent the card, and she literally looks at it and says, "Nope, get out, get out."
Serious?
Yeah,
Not even
I'm like,
explain why? Just get out?
I'm like, wait,
Wow.
no, I gotta get on this plane, like, because at that point I'd already been at the airport for like 9 hours. That's just how long my layover was. So she just told me she like shoot me off. Like,
Wow.
I'm like, look, listen. I just like I don't want to cuss, but like I was pissed. And then I asked her again, I was like, what? And then I asked the other lady, I'm like, why isn't she letting me on the plane? And she goes, oh, you have to have a negative COVID test. I'm like, wait, no, I have a COVID vaccination. She's like, no, we're the airline. We're not the country. So airlines and countries had different requirements.
Wow.
So long story short, I had to stay the night for another 26 hours because the plane left every
Wow.
24
So you got
hours.
your opportunity to write in the airport.
I did. So, yeah, that
Probably wasn't good writing. He was probably mad.
I was tired because I didn't sleep. Like, you can't sleep in those airport benches, and I'm not.
Right. Those little tiny seats.
And then after, I basically got to Egypt 36 hours later, on like 3 hours of sleep.
Oh, God.
I saw the pyramids, and that like revitalized my energy. Like, just
when I seen the picture of you in Egypt, when you guys were actually in the tombs.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like that was
Energy.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then sitting on top of a pyramid, like that.
Well,
was...
we didn't get to the top. They don't let you go to the top, even though they let Michael
Not the
Jackson
top,
go
but
to
you
the top.
did
Yeah.
they? So they
but-
let him go.
Actually, did they? I think they tried to tell us a story about him trying to get to the top, but they don't let anybody climb it. But we were like at the base, like kind of. It looks like we're at the top,
Yeah.
the angle. But yeah, that was
That's pretty awesome, though, to even say that you touched the pyramids. Though,
Amazing.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that is just awesome. So, what was that feeling like when you actually walked into the tomb? Was there energy there that you could feel, or was it just a normal? We just touring and
far from normal, because they command vision, like, and this is understatement. Like pyramids are they're like there. It's like this big massive rock triangle. It's like, and they're just there. But walking into the Red Pyramid, which is one of the larger ones that's away from the pyramids at Giza. So there's like different sets of pyramids. There's the pyramids in Giza, which is right by Cairo, where the Nile River used to be. And then we went to the Red Pyramids, which is like 15 minutes from those. That's a larger pyramid where we got to walk into. And it was like, once you walk in, you walk up, and then you walk down into it. So, yeah, it was...
Did you have
cold.
any spiritual experiences or any?
It was cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, I remember.
It felt like a tomb.
Yeah, it felt like a tomb. But the deeper we got, I remember. I think I took a video of this, but I remember telling my friend, because he had met me there. He was like, "Bro, this is not normal. Like there's." Like it's just an energy. Like it's hard to explain with words.
So there's an,
Yeah, there's an energy. The deeper we got, and then we got to walk deeper into it. Like there's certain chambers you can go through. You crawl. They built steps to crawl through certain areas, but it was there is an energy that you feel. It also kind of has a aura, like a scent to it too. But it's really hard to put to words that feeling.
but you knew it was something.
Yeah, it's
other,
I guess energy is the best way I can put it. Kind of, it was very moving. Just a lot that, the more I try to explain it, the more it just kind of kills the explanation of what it actually was.
Right.
But you can definitely feel the times.
Wow.
The generations in there.
So, what would be your tip for a traveler going to Egypt? Was the stay pleasant there? What was it? I remember you writing in the magazine about every hour, the Muslim
Oh yeah, prayer hour.
prayer. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's prayer hour, but in the Muslim they have the 5 concepts or 5 elements of life, and that's basically between 6 a.m., 5 a.m. or no 6 a.m. or is it 5 a.m. and then like 12 o'clock and then 3 o'clock and then 5 and then 7. So yeah, there's prayer sirens that go off. All the mosques, the temples will do prayer sirens, and I remember at one point we were coming from one of the markets, and the taxi driver, he stopped and prayed, and traffic actually stopped. Maybe not everybody does that, but
Wow.
like it's pretty normal.
Wow.
People
So
will just
everything
stop on
kind
the
of stops at
Yeah.
that time, and
Yeah.
it's like it's
5
time
times
to
a
pray.
day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
And I would say Egypt is relatively safe. There's a lot of like not militia, a lot of soldiers. Like people are like guarded. Like it's I think at one point it probably wasn't as safe, which is probably why they have a lot of guards, and you see a lot of military throughout the areas.
Well, I can imagine there's think about everything that's been taken from them from, over the centuries. They're probably protecting their relics.
Yeah.
And
And I would say, like, as far as traveling along there, they're really nice people, but I actually wrote about the street hustlers there. Like, they're persistent. Really nice, too.
So they'll guilt you into...
They will, you will think, like, I don't know, they'll give you directions and they'll walk with you there and ask for a tip. Or try to get you to their shop because they selling memorabilia.
That actually happened to me when I was in Dubai, and we were going out to the desert to have a barbecue, and we stopped at the store just to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And while in the store, the guy comes up to me, "Oh, you would look beautiful in this." And he brings out this green dress. I ended up getting the green dress. Brings out this green dress, a color I would never wear, but it kind of had like this princess vibe to it. It was it wasn't a hijab, but it was really pretty. I don't even know what it's called. I wish I did, so I don't want to disrespect their culture or anything by calling it the wrong thing. But it's a beautiful dress. I didn't want to buy it though, but he like made me try it on in the store. Like was putting it over my head, and was just like, oh my God, you just look just so beautiful in this dress. You got to take this dress. If you don't take this dress, then you just So I ended up leaving in the dress. So I got in the desert in a full long dress
that's
and
how
a
they
little
get you.
thing on my head.
They make it so hard to say no.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I was there for a month, so I had to get used to like saying no.
How long were you in Egypt?
About a month. It was like 20
wow.
20 some days. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to get really used to like ignoring it. Because they could
Not
tell
feeling
I'm
guilty.
From there. Like they could say I'm not from there.
Right.
They would say, "Oh, are you from Nigeria? You Gambian or Nubian, Congo?" I'm like, "No, I'm American." "Oh, American, we like cousins." I'm like, okay. So, but yeah.
Nice. Well, Terrell, I want to thank you for coming on to the show and for sharing your experiences with us, and for being so open with us. I will be inviting you back on so we can talk about the rest of your travels.
Yes.
And also talk about the event that happened in November and kind of what your take was on there. You guys, we had an event last November. It was an award ceremony and also the Black Estates anniversary. And it was the Shining Star, Rising Star Award ceremony. So we gave out some awards. We had a live band and singers and amazing food. And then we had entertainment. Terrell came and did an amazing poem. We had a comedian. It was just an awesome night. Hope to see you guys at the next one that we do soon. But you guys, please make sure you guys check out Terrell Kent. Check out his page. Terrell, give them your page so they can check out your work when it is ready to be put out there.
My website is vehicledigest.net. Again, that's vehicledigest.net. And you can follow me on Instagram, Bud Writes, BUDD Writes, Bud Writes. That's also Facebook. Also have a podcast, Bud Talks. So basically, if you go through all my content, like you mentioned, I have like 7 other countries to talk about. Like literally after Puerto Rico and Egypt, I literally went around the world and back. So a lot more books I talk about on there, and travels and just poetry. So if you enjoy creative storytelling, creative writing, that's where you'll find it. VehicleDigest.net.
Yeah, you guys check him out. Also, if you go on to his Instagram page, it has pictures of his travels. If you guys want to know what places to go to and, kind of what the treatment is like, where to stay at, things like that, he will be coming back on the show so we can talk a little bit more about that. He wrote an article in the magazine as well that you can check out in the last issue, the Black Estate Volume 3, and it's called Around the World in Black, which is just some really good information in there. It's a really great article. Keep on looking out for Terrell. He will be, he, like I said, is one of the writers and journalists of the Black Estate. So check out his work in our magazine. Thank you guys for joining us. This was awesome. It's been a while since we've done this. So I will be doing this more often, you guys. So just keep checking in and following us. Also, you can follow us at BLKEST8.com on Instagram and at the Black Estate Mag on Facebook. And then if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Tanisha the Real Estate Diva on Instagram, and then Tanisha Williams on Facebook. You guys have a wonderful day. Hope to see you guys soon. If you guys have any comments about the show, please leave your comments. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and several other podcast stations. So just keep checking in with us. Thank you for joining us, and you guys have a blessed day.
So join Tanisha, the Real Estate Diva, licensed broker and CEO of the Black Estate Mag at the Black Estate. Our interest, our voice podcast for some real conversation.